Hello there and welcome to episode 5 of our series of videos AskHighrise, where you can ask the HighRise digital team any questions that you like about WordPress and business and the internet and anything else that we're prepared to answer. So here's today's episode, which we're going to look at a question that often comes up in some of the meetups that I go to, often comes up in some of the WordCamps that we go to as well. And the question is there too many plugins that I can be running on my WordPress website? So is there a certain amount of plugins that I should try and stick to? And that kind of leads to some other questions as well. So I thought we could have a look at this and handle how this question. So for those of you who don't know, plugins in WordPress, they add functionality to your WordPress site. So they make it do other things. So for example, one of the very popular plugins is an SEO plugin, and it allows you to control some of the search engine optimization features of your website. So it's adding some functionality. There's lots of plugins. WordPress.org has a repository of plugins that you can pick from, and there is I think there's over 50,000 in there now. So there's a lot to choose from. But the question is how many is too many, or is there a certain amount that I should stick to in terms of keeping my site to a certain level? And I see a lot of people answering this question with you see a lot of web pages about written this, and they say how to do such a thing without a plugin. And I'm not so sure if I agree with that. I think plugins, well-written plugins, there's nothing wrong with them. Obviously, if you're need to add some functionality, then there's nothing wrong with adding it as a plugin. You see lots of people that say, don't do it as a plugin, put it in your themes, functions file, whatever. But actually, a plugin is kind of the same thing. And actually, it's much easier to work with plugins because you can compartmentalize plugins. You can switch them on and off, so you can easily debug things. So actually, in that instance, plugins are great. You shouldn't be worried about activating plugins on your website. Where this falls down, of course, is if you get some really bad plugins. So if you get a badly coded plugin that's doing things the wrong way, and it's being a bit of a hog on your site, then yeah, absolutely. Too many of those are going to slow your site down. So you need to pick your plugins carefully and have a good read through and see what the reviews are and ask other people's opinion who may be running it. If a plugin's doing things well, it shouldn't be too much of an issue to have lots of plugins on your website if that's what you need. My philosophy on plugins is they should be do one thing really well, really, as much as possible. Try not to be a plugin that does everything. Have a plugin that does one thing and does it really well. That's probably a good philosophy to have. But yeah, bad plugins make for slow websites, and that's more likely what I see with people. Lots of plugins, they have lots of plugins. Some of them are bad, some of them are good, and that's why the websites get particularly slow. That said, plugins add functionality to your site. I guess the more your site has to do at various points when it loads by interacting with plugins, then it is going to be slightly slower. But if it's a well-coded plugin, it should be fairly negligible. So I think the rule of thumb is that no, lots of plugins aren't bad. It's just that you need to make sure that you're running good plugins and not bad plugins, obviously. So on that subject, what I thought we could do is I've got a little test site set up here on my local machine. And we can see, I don't know what plugins I've actually got installed on here. Well, I've just got one that I've been working on, our new release of our Broadbean plugin. But what I wanted to show you is if I just go to add new, there is an excellent plugin, ironically, in the WordPress.org repository, which allows you to see what plugins are causing the problem, if you like. And it's called Query Monitor. It's by a developer called John Blackburn. And he's got lots of good plugins, and this is particularly one that I use on most builds that we do in order to try and make sure that the code that we're writing is of good quality. So let's just activate this plugin, and you'll kind of see what I mean. Now I've not got a great amount going on this site, so it's probably not going to be the best example, but you can see what happens. So in the admin bar at the top here, we get this extra drop down with some really good information about what this site's doing. So for example, it's telling me that this page loaded fully in 1.47 seconds, not particularly quick. It was 9,217 kilobytes, which is pretty small. Not sure what that might be the query time on the database, can't remember. And there was 19 queries, so it asks the database for information kind of 19 times, which is not too bad. And what happens is this bar goes kind of a red, or I think it's an orange colour. I think it's orange for a warning and red for like a proper error. if you've got any issues. So when you're coding a plugin or you're coding a website, you can use this plugin to check whether things are actually happening as quick as possible, if you like. But it's even better than that, because if I click into this queries option, you get this nice little panel at the bottom here, and it can tell me all the queries that have happened in the database. And not only that, it tells me what part of WordPress actually ran that query. So if you've got a plugin in here that's running a query, then you can see which plugins have done it and so on. And often what happens is on here you'll get, where it says queries, you'll get like like I said, an orange banner, and it'll say like slow queries. And it'll tell you which ones are the slowest queries and are causing a problem, and it'll tell you which plugin they come from as well. So this plugin is really, really powerful, not only for developers, which is what it's primarily for, but actually for users of sites. You know, if you've got a problem with your site and you can't find where that problem is coming from, you know, where's the bottleneck, what's the slow point of this site, then something like this can help. Now, I wouldn't leave it running on a live site all the time, because it's gathering all that information. It's going to be a little bit slower on your site. It's going to slow your site down that little bit. But certainly on a staging site or a local site, and maybe just quickly on a live site to check what's going on, it's a really good resource, and I'd highly recommend that if you've not had a look at it, if you're a developer, then you certainly do so. And even if you need to try and find out what's slowing your site down, it's an excellent choice. So that's Query Monitor from John Blackburn. Really good plugin to try and work out which are the slowest and fastest plugins. So I hope that's helped in some way or another. So I think the takeaway from this is that lots of plugins aren't bad, but lots of bad plugins are bad. So it's trying to pick the plugins that you need and the ones you don't need, and trying to stick to the plugins that are just doing one job and one job really well. So I hope that helps, and join us next time for the next episode.